First, let me commend all of you here who recited the national anthem. Yes, because especially those of you who are below 65 years old. Those of us who are significantly above 65 in our days, and from 1960, when we gained independence, every morning in the primary school you must recite the national anthem standing at a lap. So we got used to this new one. Then, of course, during the Obasanjo's government, that the middle-class national anthem came on board. It's a generation. And now we went back to that old one, which is a bit comfortable, because that's what we memorized in our primary school days. So we thank you. And you didn't sing only the first stanza. They tried. You say something which I did not agree with you. They did very well. And you know, in Nigeria then, we were always reciting the first stanza, so people don't know much about the second and the third. When I was in office, okay, that was the second one. It is now that people are trying to sing the three, and so on. So you did very well. I have to commend you very sincerely. I also have to commend Jega for selecting Jega to give the keynote speech. You know, the issue of a keynote address is not a political address like who will give. A keynote is good for somebody with some academic background who goes into and you enjoy the speech. Jega is not only a professor, but a professor of political science. And also, he was the chairman of INEC at the time in Nigeria. And the chairman of INEC observed some elections within, especially the Electoral zone. And since he left office, he has been heading election observation mission. So he's the best person to give a keynote. Thank you for that. Let me sincerely appreciate His Excellency Goitia Migo, the European Union Ambassador. Thank you for coming to grace this occasion. And let me also appreciate your colleague, Dr. Jensen, for coming to represent the German ambassador. Thank you, and thank you for your brilliant speech. Let me also appreciate my good friend, the former Chief Whip of the House of Rep, Honorable Shaku Bawat. Thank you for coming with me. And the keynote speaker, Professor Jega, thank you for delivering. If Jega don't give me a copy, please you give me a copy of your speech. And let me thank my own Dr. Aisha Abdullahi, the former Commissioner of Political Affairs at the African Union. Thank you. And I think a board member of Jega, so thank you for being here. Let me also appreciate heads of missions that are here, civil society organizations, and others. I appreciate all of you. I thank Jega Africa for inviting me to this introspection session, aptly termed Reflection Conference on Recent Elections in West Africa. Thank you for bringing us in. I commend Mr. Samson Itodo, the Executive Director of Jega, and other bright young Nigerians who are behind Jega Africa for their commitment towards promoting democracy, good governance, and credible elections in the continent. I've been seeing you in the field in most of the places I go, so you are doing very well. I have to commend you. The theme of this conference, which seeks to review the conduct of elections in West Africa, particularly during the 2023-24 election cycle, and the implications for electoral democracy, is both timely and desirous. And I will say why it is desirous maybe when I will conclude. Judging from the focus of the conference, we are all reminded as we gather here that democracy is not just a system of governance, but a continuous journey of learning, adaptation, and improvement. And Professor Jega said something along that line. There is no gainsaying the fact that elections are the hallmark of democratic society. This is because they provide citizens with the opportunity to choose their leaders and hold them accountable. And that is critical. Choose their leaders and hold them accountable. When you cannot choose their leaders, then democracy becomes questionable, like Socrates said, and I will come to that. The state of democracy in West Africa Let me start by stressing that West Africa has made significant strides in its democratic journey over the past few decades. This may sound rather incongruous in the light of the recent experience in the sub-region where some countries, including Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso, and Niger, have regressed to military rule, especially since 2022, when the first coup in this dispensation took place in Mali, because I was involved as a mediator. Still, I believe we have made incremental progress. It is clear that West Africa has largely transitioned from the dark days of pervasive military rule and authoritarian regimes to a region where elections are now held routinely as the primary means of transferring political power. The fact that the military regimes are now treated as an aberration within the economic community of West African states ECOWAS speaks eloquently to this progression and highlights the resilience and determination of our people to embrace democracy as a way of life. This is indeed a clear departure from the not-so-distant past, when many nations in the sub-region experienced long spell of political instability or military dictatorship, with some of the leaders then even played a key role that setting up ECOWAS. The number of military leaders were involved in setting up of ECOWAS. However, the journey to democratic West Africa has not been easy. Jega mentioned that the transition period in focus 23-24 symbolizes the checkered history of democratization, showcasing a mixed bag of electioneering and democracy in our region. While some countries conducted peaceful and credible elections, others were marred by violence, allegations of fraud, and institutional weaknesses. These challenges remind us that democracy is not a destination, but a process that requires constant vigilance, innovation, and collaboration. I believe that is what this gathering here today is just about. To put it in perspective, several West African countries, including Nigeria, Senegal, Togo, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Ghana, held elections during the 2023-24 election cycle, each with its own unique processes, outcomes, and challenges. Jega did not go into, he didn't want to hit these countries. To illustrate my point, I will discuss the experiences in some of these countries. In February 2023, Nigeria held general elections and subsequently carried out a peaceful transition from one civilian administration to another. However, despite the introduction of the bimodal voters accreditation system, the BVAS, and result viewing portal, the IREP, to enhance transparency by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, the process still experienced logistical issues, delayed voting in some areas, violence, and technical glitches with the BVAS system, resulting to, of course, avalanche of litigations. Sierra Leone also introduced new technology with the use of biometric voter registration ahead of its presidential, parliamentary, and local council elections in June 2023. However, there were allegations of irregularities, including voter intimidation, ethnic tension, and controversial results, which culminated in the opposition's boycott of governance institutions. Of course, we know, I think you were there in Sierra Leone. No, Liberia. A leading civil society lady has to run out. Oh, yeah, you are there. Yes. I think he ran out of the country because she was afraid of being arrested. So, yes, we use technology, but the problems were not solved. Late last year, Ghana conducted general elections, which were indeed successful, despite the application of limited technology. The country, with a reputation of being one of Africa's most stable democracies, live up to this billing by conducting peaceful polling and smooth transfer of power. The Electoral Commission of Ghana and the security authorities played a crucial role in ensuring the elections were free, fair, and transparent, demonstrating that Ghana's democratic institutions and processes have continued to be resilient, even with limited technology. Two other countries, Liberia and Senegal, also conducted general elections with limited deployment of technology. In these countries, the processes were generally peaceful, transparent, and credible, with a high voters turnout. In the case of Liberia, incumbent President George Weah conceded defeat to the opposition candidate Joseph Boakai after a closely contested runoff, setting a positive example of a democratic transition in the region. The pre-election period in Senegal was notably marred by protests, arrest of opposition figures, and concerns about the independence of the judiciary. However, it was pleasing to observe that once the election process kicked in, the polling process progressed without hitches, resulting in a free and fair outcome. And I must commend that the elections in Senegal, to me, was one of the best elections I have observed in Africa and the few outside Africa. And it's an election that almost zero technology. So technology per se, we need it, and I will emphasize that later. But the human factor is critical and more important than even the technology. At the end of the exercise, the opposition candidate